Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari A to Z Flashback, a series of explorations of the 150 games that make up Atari Flashback Classics for Nintendo Switch. Today's game is Outlaw, which was a 1978 release from Atari, and alongside Combat is one of the system's most beloved competitive two-player games. Now, there was a 1976 arcade version of Outlaw, but it was very different to this game. It was actually a light gun game that simulated a fast draw duel between the player and the computer. But the 2600 version, which was developed by David Crane, who would go on to develop Pitfall for Activision, as his probably most famous work, it more resembled Midway's 1975 arcade machine called Gunfight, rather than Atari's Outlaw cabinet. Which is interesting because the Outlaw arcade cabinet was seen as a response to Midway's Gunfight cabinet, even though they were very different sorts of games. So, nice mix of stuff going on there. Now, Outlaw is a two-player game mostly, but it does have some single-player content as well, which is quite unusual for a game released in 1978. So we'll try and take a look at both sides of the game today. Let's go play Outlaw.
Okay, here we are once again with Atari Flashback Classics. And today we're taking a look at Outlaw, which is one of the all-time classics of the system, particularly if you're playing with friends. Now, unusually, for an early Atari 2600 game, this actually does have some single player modes in there. So we're going to take a look at those first, and then as with previous two-player games, I will more than likely hand you over to Future Pete after that, who will commentate over some pre-recorded footage of the two-player mode, likely ably assisted by my wife, who is out at the moment, but will be back shortly, and so I will try and rope her into doing that later. Anyway, let's take a look at the manual before we do that. So, early era Atari 2600 means lovely watercolour artwork, and these sort of old school black manuals. Alright, here we are, no story in this one. One or two players can become expert gunslingers during these games. In one-player games, target shoot, you control the movement of a gunfighter with the left joystick controller. Practice target shooting with the moving target that appears on screen. And in two-player games, gunslinger games, each player controls the movement of a gunslinger with a joystick controller. You score points when your gunslinger shoots your opponent's gunslinger. In all one- and two-player games, bullets will ricochet off the upper and lower playfield boundaries. Okay, so you move your character around on the screen by using the joystick. When you want to aim the gunslinger's gun, press the red controller button. Hold the button down while you control the movement of the gunslinger's arm with your joystick controller. So yeah, you can actually aim in different directions with this, so you can shoot up and down diagonally as well as just across the screen. And you actually fire when you release the fire button. Okay, in one-player games, you score 1 point each time a bullet from your gunslinger's gun hits the moving target. You have 99 seconds to score a maximum of 10 points. And in two-player games, you score 1 point each time a bullet from your gunslinger's gun hits the opposing gunslinger. The first player to score 10 points wins the game. So, there are several different modes in this. 16 gunslinger and target shooting games in this game program. So you have blow away, which means you can shoot away elements of the center object. You have cactus, which puts a cactus in the middle of the stage. The stagecoach, which has a stagecoach in the middle, and in some cases the stagecoaches are moving. In wall games, there's a wall in the middle, obviously. In Getaway, during a gunfight with Getaway, each gunslinger can move immediately after shooting the gun. Without Getaway, gunslingers must wait until their bullets disappear off the screen or hit a target. In 6-shooter, you only have 6 bullets. Yeah, and that's it. So there's a bunch of different variations in this. So games 1 to 12 are the two-player games, and games 13 to 16 are the single-player games. So we'll take a look at those single-player games first of all, and then, as I say, I will hand over to Future Pete, who will demonstrate some of the two-player modes. Alright, so let's begin. So, first of all, we'll cycle our way through to number 13. Here we are. One player, cactus, normal. Game reset. So we've got 99 seconds to score up to 10 points. Shouldn't be too difficult, I don't think. It's just all about timing, mostly. Oh, no, that's not good timing. And there we go, done. So 36 seconds. So you can sort of challenge yourself in this mode to try and get 10 points in a shorter amount of time, I guess. This being an early era Atari 2600 game, there's no sort of specific high score system. There's no kind of fanfare for winning or anything like that. You just make of it what you will. It's a bit like I tend to think of it as being a bit like when you're playing a sport or something like that. It provides you with the rules and the tools you need to have some sort of gaming experience, but actually the overall structure of the experience is up to you. It is what you make of it. Okay, one player cactus blowaway. So this is exactly the same as we've seen before, but this time we can actually shoot a hole in this cactus in the middle, which there isn't a lot of point in doing because we can just stand here. That's a really horrible combination of colours as well. It should be commended. But yeah, you can hopefully see how blowaway would make two-player games quite interesting, because as you sort of progress through your battle with each other, you can gradually blow away the obstacles and make it more and more difficult for people to hide, basically. One player, moving stagecoach, normal. Okay, so now we've got moving target and stagecoaches going across the middle, so now we've got a bit more of a challenge. So now we need to time it so that we can actually hit the target through the stagecoaches. Again, it might be easier to wait near the side. Oh, this is tricky, actually. Let's try up here. Oh, this is hard. Can we... No, we can't get through there. Oh, we can, though. If you can negotiate your way through the stagecoaches in the middle, then you can blow up the target at point-blank range like that. Nice. Alright, this time we have a moving stagecoach and blowaway, so we can actually shoot through the stagecoach this time, which might make things a little bit easier. But even then, you still got to actually hit the target. Ooh, just missed that time. Again, you could do what we did before and just try and actually get through the middle, which is possible. We've proved it last time was possible. But it's kind of more satisfying to hit it from a distance. Ooh, just missed. Nice. Now, obviously, as you can probably tell, the main attraction of this game is its two-player mode, and it's a very fondly regarded game because of its two-player mode. No one really talks about this target shooting mode because, I mean, there's not a lot to it, really. But it is a solid way of getting a feel for the basic mechanics, and I guess you could have some sort of fun competitions with friends on this to see who is the quickest to score 10 points and so on. Again, it's an example of an early Atari 2600 game providing you with the tools you need to have fun around a particular theme, and not necessarily telling you what the best way of doing that is. So again, you can sort of enjoy Outlaw however you see fit. So those are the single player games. So I'm going to hand over to Future Pete now, who will show you some two-player action. So he'll see you in just a moment. Okay, Future Pete here. I have now recruited my wife to the fold, and we're going to play some Outlaw 2-player, because that's really what this game is all about. The target shooting stuff is all fine and good, but the fun in this game is playing against a friend. So, as we've seen as we cycled around the various things, there are a bunch of different ways to play this game. Beginning with this most simple one here, which is there's a cactus in the middle, and you can't shoot through it, but you can bounce off the sides of the arena. So, I am on the left in orange, and my wife is on the right in a slightly different orange. And yeah, as you can see, there's a very different dynamic to playing this in two-player. Because both of you are moving a lot more erratically than the targets do in the single-player mode, it makes the game way more interesting. And then there's additional considerations as well, like the fact that under the default settings, you can't move until your bullet has disappeared from the screen. So when you fire your gun, ideally you need to try and find yourself in a position where you can shoot at your opponent without them being able to shoot at you. Or at the very least, you can shoot at your opponent where it will hit them before they are able to fire back at you. And you'll see a fairly crucial part of the strategy is making good use of those rebound shots, which I was starting to get the hang of by this point, and my wife also started to get the hang of at roughly the same time. Okay, so that's the cactus game. The next one we've got there is the getaway mode, which I think we skipped over. Yes, we did. So the getaway mode allows you to move after you've fired your shot. But we skipped that because it's mostly the same as the original. This is the blowaway mode. And in the blowaway mode, the scenery in the middle can be destroyed. So if you hit the scenery in the middle with a bullet, the block that you hit will disappear. And so over time you gradually whittle down the defences that are available to you and make it more likely that you will hit each other. But you still have that unpredictable element. You still have that interesting element where you can't quite predict how your opponent is going to react. And, of course, you've still got the timing aspect where you can't move until your bullet has gone off the screen, because getaway is only in that one mode, I think. But yeah, that was a fairly quick game. But you can see that actually ended up being much more evenly matched. So this one here with the absolutely horrible colour scheme, this one here is called 6-shooter mode. And you'll see at the top of the screen underneath our scores there's a little bar for each one. That indicates how much ammunition you've got left. So each of you have 6 bullets. And once you've gone through your 6 bullets, you can't shoot until your opponent has also fired all of their 6 bullets. At that point, both of you will be able to fire again. So you see here, I blew my whole load at the beginning and was not able to fire. So I was then very open to Andy firing at me with her remaining shots, because I couldn't sort of lay down any kind of defensive fire because I didn't have any bullets left. And now you see, once we'd both expended our full complement of 6 shots, we both get a full reload, and the game continues like that. So this is an interesting mode that kind of adds a different sort of strategy to the whole thing, because on the one hand it's good to put pressure on your opponent, but on the other it's very dangerous to put yourself in that vulnerable situation where you can't discourage your opponent from approaching you. And as you can see, this also has the blowaway mechanics in effect as well. So while we are playing this mode, we're also blowing away the cactus in the middle of the screen. Now you see, this mode actually ended up going on a lot longer than the other ones. But also ended up with an execution style killing right at the end of me. In that one there, it was a case of who was going to destroy the other one first. Okay, so next up we have the stagecoach mode, which is basically the same as Cactus, except the obstacle is a different shape. So nothing super remarkable going on here. But it is a very differently shaped obstacle, which you have to deal with. and you'll see that kind of limits the angles you can fire your shots at to a certain extent as well. So I seem to recall both of us having a bit of trouble with bouncing shots off the bottom. It's much harder to actually make them clear the other side of the stagecoach and be in a position where they can hit your opponent. So you're a bit more limited on space in this one, which is quite interesting. One thing I did find very pleasing about this game is that often when I'm playing two-player games like this, I sort of feel a bit bad that I'm putting my wife through it. Maybe playing a game that she doesn't feel like playing or something like that. But this one she was actually genuinely enjoying. We were both having a really good laugh at what was going on, and it was some silly fun. And I think the fact that the mechanics of this are so simple to understand is a really key part of this. It's a super simple game. You can understand why this is such a beloved classic in the Atari 2600's library. Now, I found her reaction quite interesting, though, because she did not really like combat very much. And combat is sort of the other big two-player classic on the 2600. But the trouble with combat is there's certain modes in it where it's just not very well balanced. Like, if you think of the iconic tank mode, for example, the problem with that mode is that it's very easy to get yourself into a position where you can shoot your opponent and then you can just keep repeatedly shooting them to earn all the points you need to win the game. And that doesn't seem very fair, whereas in this one, there's sort of the additional restrictions on your movement make it a little bit more fair. And a little bit more interesting to play. And then, of course, you've got things like the moving obstacles and the fact you can blow away obstacles as well. Just makes things a little bit more interesting as well. So, okay, so on to the next stage, which is the stagecoach stage again, but this time you can blow away the stagecoach. Which means that if you're having trouble hitting your opponent, you can just shoot some holes in the obstacle until you can get to them. Me suffering from some unfortunate rebound shots here. I'm still on the left, by the way, if you'd forgotten. And my wife Andy is on the right. And you'll see, you can tell she's enjoying herself because she's actually scoring a decent amount of points. A lot of these matches ended up being very close. Because it's so quick and easy to learn those mechanics and understand how to play this game that within like a single round of getting used to the controls, we were both having a great time. See, there we go. Beaten. And we're then onto the two-player moving stagecoach with blowaway. So this time, the stagecoaches are moving, and you can shoot holes in them. So the way this works, it is just a single stagecoach, and the damage is persistent, so as it scrolls off the top of the screen, when it comes back, you'll see that the damage you've done to it is on the next stagecoach. So it's really just one stagecoach that is cycling around the screen. And again, the fairly narrow window of opportunity you've got for actually firing at your opponent in this one makes it quite challenging until you've maybe blown a bit more holes in the scenery. But at the same time, standing in that opening can make you feel very vulnerable as well. As you can see, just having a shot on target is not necessarily enough to guarantee your safety. It's interesting watching this back, actually, just sort of trying to figure out what is going through each of our heads as we move around, seemingly at random. But there's sure to be something going on in our minds at that point. So we skipped the moving stagecoach with the 6-shooter, and we then went on to the wall mode, which actually starts with a completely solid wall in the middle that you have to blast your way through before you can shoot your opponent. Now, I found this one a little tricky because the collision detection on the wall is a bit dodgy. And then I also figured that standing in that opening there was not the right thing to do. So my wife decided to open the gap a little bit more. And then we were fully reloaded. Ready to go. And again, staying well out of the way, seeing if I could poke my gun through there. But no. Was not to be. And you see there, I fired 3 shots at the wall, and for some reason it only took a pixel out the middle of the wall. Don't quite understand what's going on there, but I mean, the principle of this mode is sound. It's just the execution doesn't seem to quite work, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because this has the potential to be one of the most interesting variants. As the added sort of almost stealth element, I guess you'd call it, makes things really, really interesting. I'm saying interesting a lot, but no, this is a fun game, and it is fascinating to look at when you consider how early this game came out and how many modern gaming conventions we can actually trace all the way back to this one. So what we've got here is we've got cover-based shooting, basically. You've got the idea of hiding behind things and then popping out when you can to make an attack. And considering whether or not that's going to make you vulnerable. And also sort of multiplayer elements like taunting your opponent. Like you can see what my wife is up to here is just trying to toy with me, basically. And then that happens. Oh, catching up. Bit of sneaking. Sneaky, sneaky. Sneaky, sneaky. No, that wasn't going to work, so... Taking advantage of a clear opening there. Some whistles past her skull. There we are. Another victory for me. Then we skipped the moving wall mode, and that was it. So, there's Outlaw for Atari 2600. Lots of fun, especially for 2 players, so try and recruit a friend if you can. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.